regulatory bit. In a way, it would be easy to say, well, bulk goods and cased goods, they're all the same, aren't they? They're a product, they're crossing a border, it may be a customs border, or it may be moving within a customs union, but they're on a lorry, they're on a container, they're on a ship, they go to a port, they may be consolidated with other loads, they may be moved by different modes of transport at different times in the history of the journey, but they're all basically the same, aren't they? And to an extent that's true, because again, as we heard earlier, you don't manage by exception, and customs rules, excise rules are no exception to that. They have a rule for all classes of goods, but there are differences. You may find that the tariff for bulk goods is different to the tariff for cased goods. So at the moment, for example, if you have a third country import to the European Union of wine, if it's in a bottle, it's around 13 to 15 euros a hectolitre, depending on its ABV. If it's bulk, it's just a shade under 10 euros a hectolitre. Now, it's only a few pence a bottle in the end, but if you're transporting 22,000 litres, 220 hectolitres, that's a fair chunk of cost that you have to take into account. And if you can save that by transporting it in bulk, that's good. This may be more important after the UK leaves the EU, when the customs wall will be around the UK, or at least in theory, unless we're in a new customs union. And so movements from the EU would become third country imports and would then bear a tariff. So bulk or cased, that tariff could make quite a difference. Processing reliefs. If you are bringing goods into the EU, or after Brexit into the UK, but you intend to re-export those goods to sell them on another market, the general rule is you don't have to pay customs duty twice, so you could bring those goods into the UK, process them without paying an import duty, and then only pay an import duty when you take them to their country of destination. That's fine. It's rather like components for a motor vehicle, moving around several countries before they're installed in a final product. So the trick there is that you need to know how much of your product is going to which market and where it's going to most effectively bear a processing relief. So I guess the theory would be that you have it processed in the country that would bear the higher tax, and then sell it in the country where the tax is lowest. So you have the processing relief at the highest tax, but that rather depends on which country is your main market as well. So there's some fairly complex calculations to do. I'm sure there'll be some guys with spreadsheets who are working out where it's most effective to have the bottling plant, bearing in mind transport costs, tariffs, processing reliefs that you can get, and where the relative size of the market is to all of that. You have to get the labelling right. If you're labelling goods at the place where you're making them, then you need to have the right label for the right market, so you need to know where the goods are going to get the right label on them. If you're labelling them near to your market, in the market where they're going to be consumed, then in some ways it's relatively easy because you get some unlabelled bottles in, or you get some bulk in that you're going to put in the unlabelled bottles, and then you apply the labels at the time, and you can then make sure that you have the right label for that market. The more consistent the labels can be between markets, the easier it makes it for your graphic designers, and for the marketing department. But I would argue that bulk goods gives you some flexibility over labelling, because you can then hone your labellings down and focus on the right label for the right market. And finally, on this, back to the quality bit, you need to be able to demonstrate that the goods you're bringing in are the goods that you say they are, that they're fit for human consumption, that they hit the right technical standards. So the VI1 form for wine that everybody knows and loves, that demonstrates what the product is that comes into the European Union at the moment, you need to be able to demonstrate that your product technically meets the mark, as well as being of the quality demanded by your customer.